Okay, hello, this is Wmpyr. Joining me today is a special guest, Mr. Kevin. And we have a lot to talk about today, but first I wanted to just start off with an introduction for you, Kevin. Um, you came to my classes in person, right?
Indeed. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I internet stalked you, found you, and found a way to contact you. It's
yeah.
not an easy thing to
And it happens to be that you didn't live too far away from my area, so
do.
we were able to meet up and actually train in person. And so the classes we went for 6 months because that's the amount of time it takes for me to pass on the foundation to any
Right.
student, you know, and then it's up to them what they're going to do with it,
Right.
but 6 months is what I asked for, for me to give the curriculum to the person. And you went through all of that. I mean, there were some brutal times, right?
Yeah, there were some brutal days, man. And it probably didn't help the Texas heat,
Right.
But I mean, it's just one of those things that I'm used to it. I'm used to being in the heat. It's never really bothered me.
Mm-hmm.
My wrestling background. I mean, you're in a hot room. It may be 20 degrees outside, but it's 120 inside the wrestling room. So,
right.
And you're slapping on sweats at the same time. So,
yeah, I can only imagine. And when you told me that you had a wrestling background, I was like, okay, this guy, he should know what hard work is, work ethic. So that was something that I was hoping you would bring to the table, and for sure you did.
Well, it's one of those things when I get focused. I think a lot of guys that have wrestled or even whether they were moderately successful, or extremely successful, the one thing that wrestling is going to bring is going to be the perseverance and that ability to work through difficulty, because that's really your biggest battle in any training session or practice or whatever is going to be that mental talk. Oh, it's too hot in here. Oh, I'm covered in sweat. Oh, these sweats are too heavy.
Right.
Oh, it's really nasty and stinky in here.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a specific smell in a wrestling room.
Yeah.
And it's bleach and sweat. That's what it smells like. It smells like bleach at the beginning and nothing but pure, nasty sweat at the end. And so, you get 30 or 40 guys moving around in a room and, just consistently beating on each other. It's gonna be hard. And, it was interesting when we were training. Speaking of beating on each other, I'd asked you there towards the end, like, what could I do to be a better training partner? Because you and I had spoken, and I'd had plans to teach some of this to my wife. Hopefully, if she expressed an interest at one point, and even my daughter at some point. Whenever she's mature enough to handle some of the topics and what some of the things could possibly do to another human being. And you said, yeah, you need to pull the throttle back a little bit. And I think that's a common thing, because we're taught as wrestlers that, the whistle blows, you go.
Right.
You go,
right.
you go.
Yeah. So. Every wrestler I've met have been that way. When we train, it's like, whoa, they bring a different kind of intensity, which is admirable, for sure. But then also there's different types of training. There's a time and place,
right.
For that kind of thing. Yeah.
Right, and I could definitely see how that would become dangerous, especially when you're working some of the locks and stuff like that.
Yes, and also weapons,
Yeah, weapons. Yeah, weapons. You want to start slow, right?
Yes, and also age is definitely another factor. Yeah, as you get older, when you're coaching wrestling and stuff, I mean, these are young kids, and it's for competition, so. I understand they do it that way, but when you're coming in for self-defense, you're coming in, for something totally different, and you got to go to work the next day. You got to go to a job wearing a suit and tie, you can't go there jacked up, right?
Or, I mean, even if you have a job that you work with your hands, you can't go there, missing fingers. you know what,
Or
you know what I mean?
because your grip, yeah, your hands are like, yeah, you can't.
Your
do
hands
that.
are kind of critical. So
For sure. Now,
yeah.
well, one of the things that I really admired about you when you came into the class and stuff was that even though you had this really solid background of being a wrestler, you're very open-minded towards other disciplines, and you had this desire to learn, and I think we clicked well because of that. Because I'm very I like cross training. I like different cultures.
Right.
So
and you're very open to new inputs. I think. I think my wife or somebody told me at some point that that's a sign of mental maturity, is being open to new inputs and not saying, well, I took 10 years of wrestling and that's the best, or I took 10 years of karate and that's the best. I don't need to go learn anything else because that does just fine. I will tell you, I've known people that were very successful in martial arts. And I would tell them I'm a wrestler, and like, oh, you're not a wrestler. I'm like, yeah, I used to wrestle. Well, let's go out in the yard and wrestle. Okay, well, that's not fair. You don't know how to wrestle. And they're like, oh, I've taken 10 years of karate. And blah blah blah. I can handle blah blah. Okay, well, and then they end up on their back, and they're like, wait a minute, I took 10 years of karate.
yeah.
How did I end up on my back? They even gave him a hand. I was like, here, you can hold onto this hand. Just, you tell me when you want to go, when we'll go. And, it's not being arrogant or anything. It's just, if you're going against somebody that has a different skill set that you're not familiar with,
right,
or a skill set that maybe they are familiar with, but they've had no practical hands-on practice with,
yes,
they're going to be kind of at a disadvantage. I mean, it's like me, like I said, in a little conversation we were having prior to this, that I've taken an interest in Muay Thai because of the distance aspect and the defensive and the ability to get into a clinch from the Muay Thai,
right,
and not only that, but the kicks are just nasty, and I wanted to learn how to really really kick.
yes,
and I've really been watching this guy online. I think he's a pro fighter, and he's got a pretty decent channel, and he's got some basic beginner stuff out there, and it's really great. I don't know how how you feel about the guy, so I don't want to mention his name, but he just goes into the basic mechanics of a kick and say, you want to practice this for not so much power. I mean, you want to put effort into it, but you don't want to overdo it so that you're not overcorrecting essentially. But again, with the whole Muay Thai, there's distance there. There's a gap in my game, right? This. I'm not a boxer. I'm not somebody. I took some kickboxing. I took some karate. I took some Taekwondo. I've taken, obviously your class as well, which went into improvised weapons and went into some grappling and ground techniques and all the different ranges. But the striking and the kicking, and even though I took some Taekwondo, which is a lot on kicking, Muay Thai is a different kick, man. It is a different hip manipulation. It's a different level of flexibility, and the power in it. It's just amazing to see. I'm not saying it's not possible with Taekwondo. I mean, if anybody's ever seen Joe Rogan kick, I think that's his background is
right.
Taekwondo.
Right.
And man, that dude would destroy you with one kick. I mean, he's just got and it's because he practices day in and day out. But yeah, so I tend to ramble, so you're gonna have to cut me off.
All right, yeah, no problem. I've noticed that within Taekwondo, there's tons of different ways to practice it. There's tons of different styles and sub-styles, WTF, Olympic, and then just old school, and some of those old school guys, I think Joe Rogan was more like that. If you look up a guy called He Il Cho. He was one of the famous guys over here in the U.S. that brought Taekwondo and spread it over here. I mean, that's old school Taekwondo, and yeah, those kicks are very, very powerful. It's not the tap tap quick. I got the point, I win kind of thing. Which that has its place too. But if we're talking about power, that's a different animal. And
Right.
yeah, so it just depends on. And I trained with some dudes that I did not want to be on the receiving end of their kicks, and they were
Yeah.
Taekwondo guys. Yeah.
When I was in kickboxing, there was a guy who was a black belt in Shorin-ryu karate,
Mm-hmm.
and he had walked into this kickboxing class and said, "I want to do some kickboxing." And I had only been doing kickboxing 2 or 3 weeks, and I carry a certain amount of confidence no matter what I'm doing, even if I may not be very good at it. Well, the instructor decided it was a good idea to match me and this man up in a match, and I got kicked by that guy in the groin 3 times. And I can tell you, I don't want to get kicked by that guy anywhere.
Right.
I mean, the groin is the worst place to get it, but I took 3 side kicks from this guy, and it was brutal,
Mm-hmm.
brutal,
Mm-hmm.
brutal.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just sparring. I'm sure it wasn't the full power kick.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, the people that have been doing it a while, I don't know that it really. I think the old school is starting to come back a little bit in that respect. That I think places are starting to become more full contact as a result of MMA.
Right.
You're going to find more gyms. They're going to have a little more contact. It's not going to be like some of the karate and taekwondo that I took, where it was more of the tap competition.
Right.
Not more of not a no holds barred,
Right.
mixed martial arts bout, like what you find now. But
Yeah.
It's definitely interesting the way that things progress. Just kind of watching things, and after you and I having so many conversations over that period of time, you were really open to me having input in the class, which I thought was really incredible, because I never actually experienced that before in any setting, having that I guess give and take within a training session. And so I like the fact that you would allow some creativity there.
Well, I said to you laboratory, right?
Yeah. Right.
That's kind of the way that I like to do classes. Is yes, I have a curriculum and I need to pass that down, but at the same time, everybody learns differently. Everybody has a different background. So if you could include that, I feel like they learn faster. Instead of if I just said to you, don't talk, this is what you're going to learn, and force it into you,
Yeah, just stand there and repeat after me.
Yeah, that's not very comfortable, and it's harder to develop trust. It's harder to develop a lot of things. But when you're more open, more comfortable, and then you see, hey, we're just playing around here, I think you learn better that way.
I think you do too. I mean, there's definitely a flow that you kind of get into, especially with the way that we did it. There wasn't anybody else there, so it was just you and I. But it's probably why I didn't continue on with Krav Maga after 6 or 7 months, was because of you would go in there and say, okay, do this, and this. Now go full speed, and that's all you did. You just drilled full speed on a pad or whatever, and it was just like, okay, you're gonna correct any technique, or you're gonna. I mean, I get the flow aspect of it. I get you want some repetition and to create some muscle memory. You want people to pick things up fast, but just showing people a technique and going, okay, go. That's not what I came here for.
It's a little too fast. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's a little too fast, but it's also like, how applicable is that gun disarm going to be?
Right.
Why don't you explain why it's applicable instead of saying, hey, do this, and this.
Right.
This is why we do this. This is why we do this. This is why we do this. And I could sit there and make inferences all day long, but I think learning has got to be two-way, I think, in some cases.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
some of those,
in a lot of cases,
so some of those methods I've seen with a lot of like self defense programs and reality based is they were very quick to test, and I agree with you. I was one of the ones, when I experienced it, I was like, shouldn't we drill more? Shouldn't we practice more? Get the skill a little bit higher before we test ourselves? I realize the experience is important, to experience stuff, And I try to do that with you too. Some of the stuff I knew what was going to happen, but I kept my mouth shut and I let you experience it for yourself. Like the time when, with the knife, you were hitting the tire, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just how much your fist is actually going to hit the tire. A lot of people don't realize that. It's not a sword, so you don't have the length, and you're gonna miss with a knife because it's right. It's so much.
Yeah, you're gonna. Yeah, exactly.
So a lot of people don't realize that, and they hit their hands. But I didn't want to just say that to you. I wanted you to experience that for yourself.
Right. Yeah, and all of that makes sense, but it's like, I'll give you another example just from the Krav Maga class because it's fresh in my head. I hadn't thought about it in a while, but I think I'd actually told the story to you about the fact that it was my first day, and they said, "Hey, we're going to have a simulation knife fight."
On your first day, yeah, right. I remember. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, and they're like, and this is what you do to disarm. You parry this way and you basically roll on your wrist left or right to be able to, cut, the knife out of the other person's hand. And I'm like, okay, this is really dumb. I would not even attempt this. I mean, even if I had another knife, I would probably just back away from the guy because I realized then I really don't know how to use a knife. And it took me a long time to realize that, maybe it was probably a good idea for me to learn how to use it. But essentially it got down to me and this dude that, had military training, and out of like 60 people, it was him and I, and he ended up, slicing me with a fake knife twice really quick, and it was all done.
Right.
But I mean, the point of the fact is, it's like, why and how is that ever applicable? It just didn't make any sense. Okay, you jab at somebody or you slice at somebody, and then you parry left or parry right, and you try to cut the person on the arm to disarm them. Which defang the snake, which is what you teach, that's great. But there was no discussion about range. There was no discussion about moving into a medium range, your rock and socket range, right? Mm-hmm. So
right.
There was no discussion about how to move in and out of that range. There was no discussion about circular movements to create openings. There was no discussion about any of that. It was just like, here's a fake knife. You're paying for it. Go knife fight, and it's action time. And it was just like, come on, guys. Like, I get it. There's times for doing that, but I think it should coincide with maybe a little bit of theory mixed with an explanation of why you're doing what you're doing.
I think they're relying too much on the experience and saying, you see, it was intense. Real life is going to be more intense, but.
Right.
You probably wanted a little bit more than that. Yeah. So
and this particular place, they got me in because they had some tactical gun training that was really cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had taken a couple of tactical pistol classes with them, and they were really good. Those classes were spot on. I think
were great.
I think the guy that taught them was former special forces in some respect, and had several, tactical, I think, licenses to teach, and he was very well spoken, very matter of fact, very easy to understand, and I thought the few courses that I took there for that were great. But again, it's like we always talked. It was one of those things where if there's something missing, you're not going to find it, And in my case, aside from wrestling and I think, the course that I took with you, there was always something missing in the environment that I would try to pick up new information in. And it's hard to do off of YouTube. I can sit there and practice as much as I want. and that's good. And I'll probably be able to effectively do some of those things that I watch on YouTube.
Yes.
But you and I both know that it's even better if you have a training partner.
Right.
If you have something that you can, or somebody that will even just stand there and maybe go through the motions, and maybe somebody that you can teach a little bit,
yeah.
you know, and
of course,
it just So I think visualization, is another good technique that you can use in congruence with YouTube is visualizing doing the move,
right,
and trying to set that memory in your head, and then physically going through the motions of doing it.
This is an interesting part right when you got into visualization, but we're at the 20-minute mark, so let's stop for now, and we'll save that for next time. Okay, so.
Okay.
Thank you all for stopping by. Yeah, I know. It goes by so quick. So thank you guys for stopping by. And Wmpyr and Mr. Kevin out.